Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And my guest today is coming to us all the way from British Columbia, and she's a speaker, an author, a radio host, and a cause and effect strategist. She believes when we take the opportunity to think opposite and consider our partner's situation, we can decrease polarization and increase communication, moving towards true empowerment. So welcome, Alison Donaghey. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm doing great. I'm with you. It's a treat to be here.
So, Alison, tell us a bit about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you start out?
Oh, I think I was probably born an entrepreneur. I just, that person that's just trying to figure out how to maximize whatever it is that I'm doing. So I was the youngest of three children, and my dad used to come home with change in his pocket, and he used to give the quarters to my oldest sister, the dimes to the middle sister, and I used to get the nickels, which I thought was grossly unfair. And I would do everything to try to figure out how I could get the quarters. And then when I had jobs, I always thought, I'm doing this job as good as I could do what the owner's doing, and make more money and do it maybe better. Because, when we're young, we have that sort of ego. And so I think I was always in that space of trying to fix other people's businesses. And then when I turned 30, my boyfriend died. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do? And he was a house painter, and he taught me how to paint. And I thought, well, I'll paint houses. How hard can it be? The boys do it. And so I started a house painting company, knowing nothing about business, just knowing that I had the ability to make something great.
So what were you doing before that? When you left education, what did you go and do?
Well, I got pregnant at 20.
Okay.
And at 19, I had my son the day after I turned 20. So I was officially an adult. And I realized I was just stuck in these dead end jobs. And I thought, well, I'm going to go back to university, because that's what people do. And I got my criminology diploma. I got most of my Bachelor of Arts in psychology and sociology. And then I got sick and dropped out. And then then I met this guy, and then I started painting, and it was just so much easier than working 3 jobs and being a full-time student.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then after
what happened? What happened with the painting company?
Well, it's done great. It's almost 20 years now. I ended up going back to school. I finished my degree, so I'm officially educated. And my son is now taking over the company, and which is freeing me up to work on my second company called Domino Thinking. And it's been a great journey. It really has. I never would have thought I would have been here.
Yeah, well, that is a bit of an amazing journey. Every entrepreneur I speak to, I'm always astounded by all the things that they've done to get to where they are. And it's that lesson that there's just not one path. It's wherever life takes you. Yeah. So what made you go into the domino thinking? What was the start of that idea?
I think that's probably been a lifelong thing that I didn't know I was doing. Like many of the things that we do, I had always challenged people to think about the other side and question what people were saying, and picking up on inconsistencies. And now it is morphing into speaking and the book. And I think it's just always been a part of who I am, that realizing that everything that we encounter is pretty much a double-edged sword. And when we can see both sides of it, it gives us more of a balanced perspective. And then we can have conversations with people who don't necessarily agree with us. And I think we have forgotten that. Like, it's an art form that has just been tossed aside. And what happens is, with the polarization, is that you have this group that is so polarized and separate from this group over here. And historically speaking, this group will just, consume this other group. And then it becomes one group, which now becomes polarized on a different idea. Yeah. And I think we're just going to keep breaking ourselves down and then splitting ourselves apart if we don't figure out how to reconnect.
Yeah, it's, when I was at school, we had debating societies, so that both, and sometimes you were given the role of talking from a perspective that you didn't actually agree about, and then you had to put together the arguments for it. Mm-hmm. And it was such a good discipline to learn how to look at the other points of view and to be able to argue from them, which is
Yeah.
really kind of where you're coming from, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's, you know, we used to talk to our neighbors about where the fence should go. And now we have our lawyers write letters. We don't even know how to, we just put up a bigger fence so we don't have to see them. And we do it in politics, and we do it with social topics, and we do it with our children. And
Yeah.
I'm the parent, I'm right. I don't care what you have to say. And that's just not working.
Yeah. So what lessons have you brought from developing your painting business
Mhm.
into this new business?
Oh, be true to who you are.
Mm.
Yeah, being a woman in a male-dominated industry, there was always this push for me to do it like they did it, but it was so counterintuitive to, you know, my gender. And while I think that genders should complement each other, we should still get to own the way we naturally do things. Men and women should do that, I believe. And so when I stopped thinking I had to emulate them and began to think that I could just have my own voice in my own company and do things the way I wanted to, it was at that point I reached success. And that's carrying over to Domino Thinking, because of course there's people saying, oh no, speakers have to do this and speakers have to do that. And I think, well, that's not who I am. And the more authentic I can stay to who I am, the better I'm able to pass on my message to other people. And I just think that's a great life lesson. Like, be you, everybody else is taken. I don't know who
Yeah.
said that, but it is fantastic advice.
Yeah. It's just the
Yeah.
best advice.
Yeah.
How has business changed in that time, in that 20 years that you've been running the painting business? Has the changes in technology and social media affected the way you operated that business?
Oh, yeah. You know, I think it's all about keeping up with how people are communicating, but I think the
Yeah.
fundamentals of business won't ever change. Do a good job. Do what you say you're going to do. Understand the person you're selling whatever it is you're selling to. What do they need? And then speak to that. So whether you are doing it door to door, whether you're doing it through ad campaigns, it doesn't really matter how you're doing. The fundamental is staying true to who you are and giving the best product, like over deliver, over deliver, over deliver all the time. And however you're using technology to do that, that doesn't change. I don't
Mm.
think business is ever going to change from that particular foundation. And when you think of that as the foundation, and then all of those tools are just like the icing on the cake, but you
Mm.
still need to have that basic business understanding.
Yeah, I mean, as a therapist, it's really important to me that people coming to see me build rapport with me, because it's not going to work unless they're feeling comfortable with me. And I think I've tended to think in the past, well, that's a therapy thing. But now I think it's true of every business. You want
Oh,
to
yeah.
like the person who's painting your house. You
Mhm.
want to like the person who's mending your car.
That's right. Yeah. And
Because,
it's true. It's, you know, we're not necessarily a better painter than the next painter,
yeah.
but it's my systems. It's the way I communicate with the customer. It's what I hear. It's my, I believe education is huge. So I'm constantly, whether I'm speaking or whether I'm working with an estimate on a paint job, it's this education. How do I best equip the person on the other side of me with information to make a good choice?
Yeah, it's that intelligent client thing that if you
Mhm.
can communicate properly so that you fully understand what they want,
Yeah.
you can deliver it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Otherwise, you deliver something that you thought they wanted and perhaps they didn't when they see it.
Yeah. And then it becomes all like self-centered, and then we lose sight of that other person, and it's a dance. And if you don't have that other person to dance with, you're just kind of like doing the funky chicken on the dance floor all by yourself, and that's never a good look.
It's really not a great place to
No.
be. So how
No.
have you started off with this new business? How are you getting that going?
Just one day at a time,
Mm.
really. I'm in the fortunate position where I don't, I have a really good business. It's stable. You know, I don't need another income. And so this is a very different business to start than my painting company, where I just had to
Yeah.
put food on the table somehow. And so it's allowing me to take my time with it more and really understand what it is that I'm offering people, and understand what it is that people need. And it's an interesting journey. It's so completely different. Like painting is extremely tangible.
Yeah.
Ideas and speaking is far less tangible, but it's yeah, you do what you have to do first.
Yeah. So this
Mm-hmm.
is Pat Duckworth talking to Alison Donaghey, and we're talking about this whole change, that being an entrepreneur is a journey, and the thing you started doing may not be the thing you end up doing, and it's all okay. It's an evolution. It's all good. So Alison, I can hear your passion when you talk about communication, because it's coming through in your painting business and now into this new business that you're developing. So what is it about communication and improving communication that's so important to you?
I think you dance better with somebody you're communicating with. And when I started the business, I had very little awareness of the other person I was dancing with. And that was something that grew and came over time. And then I thought, oh, people don't understand my estimates that I'm giving. So now I will do them differently so that now they're getting what they need to understand better what I'm doing. And then talking about products and explaining that. And now with the speaking and the ideas and explaining those in practical terms that people are wanting to talk about. Like I talk about the hashtag Me Too movement because people are talking about it right now. And it's a really great way to talk about polarization and the ramifications of our choices.
Yeah, absolutely. So what sort of talks are you giving then, and what groups are you talking to?
Well, I will talk to almost anybody that'll listen. I'm finding actually the millennials are really interested in what I have to say because they question things more. And I think that's just been the nature of younger people. That's part of our coming of age, is our questioning the authority of our elders and the wisdom of our elders. And I think we need to do that in order to progress. So I'm having some really interesting conversations with them and talking about my part and accountability and what role do we play in our own life so that we can start looking inward and stop pointing fingers.
Yeah.
Mm.
And do you find that this is interesting to them kind of interpersonally, or is it the bigger picture of politics and community and, where they're going with their lives?
Mm-hmm. I think with the millennials, it's both. Because they're still in that age group. I think is quite a self-centered age group, not because they're millennials, but because when we're in our teenagers and our 20s and even pushing 30, we still think the world's all about us.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to do that, because if we think about the world as about everybody else too soon, I think it scares us to maybe not act. So I think it's important that we have that self-focus, but they also have an awareness of the world that I don't think previous generations have. When I talk to adults, it's like older adults, it's more about, I find it's more about social out there issues and less about talking to each other. I think by that time we're kind of already in our groove about how we communicate, but now it's talking more about social issues like politics and the hashtag Me Too and racism and
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because the millennials get a bit of a beating up one way and another, the whole snowflake thing, and there's something different about them. But I think what we're really looking at is that first generation that grew up with so much connectivity over the internet and social media, but perhaps we stop them from actually being with each other as much, actually physically together. And but that's the impression that I get. I don't know whether you see something different.
I definitely think there's some of it. I think they have less of that authority hierarchy than perhaps our generation did. We still have that respect for our elders, whereas I think the new millennials, it needs to be earned, and maybe rightly so. But I think every generation thinks the next generation are aliens. Like I do. Like my parents thought my generation was way out there, and do you smoke pot, right? Like it's anything that I did as a child, they took as very foreign and so bad. And I think that is the role of the adults, is to think the role of the children is just alien. And that I think is that dance again. So then the
Yeah.
younger people are pushing up against this, I don't care what you think. And that propels us as a society to hopefully do better.
Yeah, I mean, what I've found, my own son is 30 now, and he still pushes my thinking in different directions. I know him and his father, they have these discussions around music and introducing new types of music. And my son kind of takes some of my thoughts and pushes them further. And so it's that being open to the learning in both directions for me. I don't know whether you think that.
Oh, absolutely. There is so much every younger generation has to offer the older
Yeah,
generation. And we, both sides of it, if we can get to that space of you have value.
yeah,
And, and I'm really trying to move away from equality and into value,
yeah,
because we're not all the same and we shouldn't be all the same. And I think equality gives us that idea that we have to be the same, like 2 has to equal 2, and therefore men have to equal women. But
yeah.
I see it as more of a value. And if we can really celebrate the things in each other, then we get to a place of appreciation.
Yeah, I think it's so much better. So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot that I love in what you're saying is that you're creating this business, this new service that you're offering is in an act of creation, because often you hear business people talking about having a business, and it's that ownership mindset rather than I'm in this process of creation.
Mm.
And, if you just think about having something, it's almost a dead thing once you've got it. But when you're creating something, it's constantly alive and evolving. Is that how it feels to you?
It totally feels like that. And even my
Yeah.
established business feels that way,
Yeah.
because I'm constantly, because I'm married to the outcome, I'm not married to the process. And so I really want to constantly be taking in new information so that I can incorporate it. And I'm just in a different level of creation with Domino Thinking. And because it has less systems in place, because it's still growing.
What capabilities are you having to develop? What's new that you're learning with this new business?
Oh, I think that whole idea about staying true to who I am
Yeah.
has been far more challenging than back then. And a couple of reasons. One, I'm older, and so I think more, I question more, I doubt myself, because I know it's like, when you get older, you don't want to go skiing because you might break a hip, right? As we get older, we're like, I know this could go wrong. And so I think we tend to sometimes be a little less bold. And there is such an audience around speaking, and there's such a business around speaking,
Mm.
and I don't fit that model. I'm not selling something from the stage. I just want to create this movement around hashtag my part and thinking opposite. And so it comes from a very different perspective, but that's not unusual for me, because I always find myself wanting something before it's in fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in front of the curve. That's where you are. Just the wave building up behind you and
There
pushing
we
you
go.
forward.
Yes. That must be it.
So this is an early stage for you to answer this question, but what does success mean to you?
For me, it's really tied to being happy and having things easy.
Yeah.
Getting to that place where you recognize that I have 2 choices in front of me. One is hard and one is easy,
Yeah.
and going with that easy one. And not that I'm just going to go back to bed and stick my head under the covers easy. I'm saying when you're making decisions, like life decisions, one is always going to feel more connected. And
Yeah.
to when we follow that's where success, like that's the end of the rainbow. And
Yeah.
I really feel like when I'm in that space, that is success. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And if there was one or maybe 2 tips you would give to a new entrepreneur, what would you say?
Use everything that you encounter as something you can convert into your business model. So
Mm.
the other day, a friend of mine posted something about cheerleaders and how she learned so much about leadership with her daughter being a cheerleader. And cheerleading is a huge thing in the States, not so much in Canada. But she took that and was able to develop advice about business based on watching cheerleaders. And we don't think we can make that connection. My son watches football. And so when he talks about the Patriots and how, and it's American football, not soccer football.
Not soccer.
Sorry. And when he talks about the Patriots and how they structure their business, like their teams and their coaching, and when we can take things like that and go, oh, how can I love that about them, even though it's a sport, how can I use that in my own business? And I think that keeps our ideas fresh, and that keeps us ahead of the curve and more connected with the things that we value out there. How do we bring them in our own business so we can value them and our customers can value them? Well, and even like with the Patriots, they don't pay top dollar for their players. They only spend less. They keep like 20% of their budget. They don't even spend their whole budget on players. So they pay, players will play less for the Patriots than they will for other companies or other teams because they like the experience. They value the experience there. Like Mind Valley is a company in Malaysia, and they traditionally pay less wages. Because working for the company has so many values. And I think we talk about getting business coaches and stuff too. Sometimes our staff can be the best coach for us because they see things we don't see. And when we can create that environment, like we do Mo Better Mondays. And so our staff come up with ideas of how we can do things better. And we work on that for the whole week. And we have a theme, and then the next week somebody else does it. We see value in what they're seeing, and they understand that they have value for us. So sometimes our team can create the best coaching situations. Not saying don't get outside help or anything like that. If that's what you need, that's what you need. But don't lose sight of the learning that can take place right within your own team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So this has been such a pleasure. Anybody who wants to get in contact with you and find out more about what you do, how can they find you?
Well, my website's dominothinking.com, and my email is info@dominothinking.com. Pretty easy. And I answer all of my emails. So I love questions. I love giving little things that can just make enough of a shift for people. So I feel free to contact me. It'd be great.
Thank you. I've enjoyed dancing with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And to all the viewers out there, keep watching for more of these interviews with amazing entrepreneurs. See you next time.